Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with our weekly Q&A thing. You're consuming it how you're consuming it, and that is okay with us. You know, maybe you've downloaded it illegally and you're watching it on an old iPod that like has the ability to upload MP4s to it. And if you are, more power to you. That seems like actually, we're getting less out of it in terms of ad revenue, but it seems like you're putting actually a lot more into it in terms of curating the experience in the way that you want it to be in. And who would I be to tell you that you can't do that?
Right.
Anyways, you know, some people are on the podcast. Most people are watching the YouTube video. What are people looking at if they're looking at the video?
So this is still a new season, but we're keeping something that we started last season, which was teams with the upcoming challenge character.
Yeah. Because there are no rules here.
There are no rules.
Except for YouTube's
It's
guidelines.
chaos and anarchy. Mm-hmm. So we've got Antimatter Sinestro. Antimatter Sinestro's passive... I mean, we go into this a lot more detail in the weekly recap, but I feel like sometimes it's hard to have the proper discussion without doing it, and then maybe we're just repeating ourselves a bit, but the audience for each one seems like they're relatively separate, or at least this one is smaller, so I'm just going to do it anyways. So his passive is Fear Me. When Sinestro performs Death from Above, 2 bars of power are drained from the opponent, and the opponent is forced to tag out. Really quickly, there's a bunch of interesting things. So Sinestro is, as a combination with Hawkgirl Prime, is really kind of fun, because Hawkgirl Prime is a way where you get to... I mean, we usually use her to have quick tag-ins and tag-outs. She's great for that. But there's something, to me, aesthetically pleasing to be able to say, hey, you... to the opponent, you stay, or you leave, and being able to do that with both of them. So Hawkgirl has the secondary passive, which we often don't care about this to make people stick around, and Antimatter Sinestro can force the opponent out with his special one, and make them tag out. One of the things that I've tried to do is not exactly replicate it, but do you remember when Antimatter Sinestro first came out and the League of Assassins Gears was broken? Mm-hmm. So League of Assassins Gears' secondary ability when you had 2 pieces was that...
It was broken for a while, actually.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. You would get the power. You would... If the opponent tagged out during the time when the secondary ability was active, we would take their power.
Yeah.
And so you wouldn't have to re-tag in Sinestro to reactivate it. It was that the new person tagging in from the opponent would reactivate it, so you could reactivate it indefinitely and keep on doing special one, stealing power, so you have that power back.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't even need anything special to do it. You wouldn't have to knock them out
over and over again.
Over and over and over. And when you had League of Assassins Knives for 50% splash damage, you would damage the person in front of you, you would damage the person off screen, and you would just whittle them away. This is very much like when Red Lantern Hal Jordan came out and he was broken too, the same way, that super, super effective.
Yeah.
When you play with him, but not that effective on defense because the AI
doesn't know how to take advantage of it.
Right. And then they fixed it, so now the gear set ability of League of Assassins only triggers when you tag in. So what you're seeing here is, so Antimatter Sinestro is nothing special. Tantu Totem, Master's Death Cart, and League of Assassins Knives. What's interesting is I'm trying to find a way to both use Arkham Knight Harley Quinn, who has a chance to do damage on the opponent with each tag in and potentially generate power, which is unfortunate because it seems like, considering the number of times we're doing it over and over with Sinestro, it's not happening very often. Mm-hmm. But using one of either Arkham Knight Harley Quinn or Hawkgirl Prime, in this case Hawkgirl Prime, to put League of Assassins gear on her, tag her in when we need to reload Sinestro, and then when Sinestro tags in, you shove during the time that it's active. And what it really shows you is how hard it is to take advantage of that ability, because the purple light disappears really quick. But it's, I mean, there's certain things that are definitely not good on Sinestro. Like one of the loadouts that we often do on our specialist is Claw of Horus. Totally wasted on Sinestro. the most important feature of the Claw of Horus is that you shatter gear. Well, guess what? You shatter gear, what happens? You shove them out.
Mm-hmm.
The shattering effect is gone. Unless you're on the last opponent, in which case it's useful. But then it seems such a waste to have a third gear slot of Sinestro taken up with something that would only work once you've knocked out the other two.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's something just really fun about being able to lock somebody in when you want them to stay and shove them away when you don't want them. And I'm thinking specifically of, we don't want to face Batman Ninja Catwoman first. We want to knock out Batman Ninja Batman and Batman Ninja Joker, Lord Joker, right? So then it gives you a little bit, you have more control. I mean, it's not easy to do everything exactly the way you want, but the fact that it's possible makes it a little bit more engaging and fun to play this team.
Yeah. So there we go.
And we were going to talk about what's been happening since the last video, right?
Yeah, we're going to say, so last weekend, or this most recent weekend, we were at the Toronto, if you listen to how Bug says it, Bug Hunter Narcissist Cookbook concert, and that was a really good time. They both put on a great show, as well as, Jesse Galloway, the normally bassist, but here, like, percussion and just kind of everything person. And it was such a good show, such a good performance, a really great energy from the crowd. It was just a really fun night overall.
Right.
This is my sort of semi-regular plug of Bug Hunter, but also Narcissist Cookbook. So I honestly started listening to Matt mostly...
Matt meaning
the Narcissist Cookbook, because it's a one-man operation. In advance of the show, when I knew that I was going to get to see both of them come into town, and I'm quite a big fan of a good chunk of his music. So a great show if you are in the United States or Toronto or Vancouver or Europe. They do European tours every once in a while. I would say both check out their music no matter where you are, but if you're in a position to see them live, it is well worth it if their music speaks to you at all. If you at least like their music, I think it's a really great live performance, right? And obviously the more you like it, the better, right? So that was a lot of fun. Huge thanks to those guys. Not like they're going to see this, but just a really cool time. And so this is, with the hiatus from me being on the trip and everything, there's been a lot of weekends with a lot of stuff going on, right? We talked about scintillation, so we've had a lot of busyness in our lives and our schedules, but that was well worth attending.
The only sort of drawback or the negative thing was that the venue was really hot,
baking hot, because they didn't turn on the AC properly in advance of the show to let it cool down, so it was really boiling.
And they were running the kitchen, and the kitchen is an open area of the bar.
Yeah,
so they had
like a fryer and stuff. Yeah, so there was.
I mean, listen, the fries were great actually.
Yeah,
but it was probably it could have probably been a bit more comfortable. We're in the middle of a heat wave in Toronto.
Yeah,
it's one of the worst. I think the Monday actually set a record. So the day after the concert set a record for temperature.
Wow.
In Toronto, and. And this is completely the venue's fault. It has nothing to do with the performers. Performers were actually great. I was surprised that they were able to maintain the energy, considering how I felt uncomfortably hot in the audience. I can't imagine what it must have been like for them performing.
They had a big old fan. That definitely helped a little bit.
So what I've read is that when the temperature hits a certain number, that fans actually don't make things better, because it needs to not only move air, but move it in a way that's...
Well, the air needs to be able to actually take heat from you.
Yeah.
Because why fans work? Fans cool people, not rooms, is the rule of thumb, right?
Right.
Because fans move air around. Technically, because they're using electricity and not 100% efficient, fans introduce a tiny little bit of heat into the environment, but probably not nearly enough for you to ever notice it, even if it was on forever. Right. But what it is...
It's the evaporation of your sweat. So by pushing air past you that has the capacity to pull fluids that still has some... ability, like something less than 100% humidity, has the potential to help you evaporate your sweat faster and cool down faster.
But it will still cool you slightly if you're not sweaty, which is just because, the air around you heats up, right? The air is colder than you, usually, right? Your skin is warmer. So energy from your skin is moving into the particles of air around you. But, the air moves around you not too fast. So what you're doing is you're sort of heating up the air around you just a little bit over time. And the air is cooling you off just a little bit over time, right? But the more stagnant the air is, the less exchange that can happen.
Okay, so it's been a long time since I've done physics. Isn't the mass of the air so small? This is why it's easier with the same temperature water compared to air.
Yeah.
You cool off a lot faster because the mass of the water has like a heat capacity that's bigger, so it can take more of the heat from you.
Yeah.
So that the effect of air is relatively small compared to what we normally experience, which is the effect of evaporation.
It is relatively small, but you don't have to be sweaty for a fan to cool you off, right?
I guess
you'll notice, right? If you're not sweaty right now, you might have a little bit of moisture on your skin, but you're not sweaty. And if you had a really aggressive fan blowing on you, you would cool down.
Isn't that sort of a bit of an illusion? Because even though we're not feeling wet, that we're constantly sweating to the, in a way that we don't necessarily feel like we don't have the tactile experience of wetness.
Maybe. I don't know if there's always some amount of moisture.
I'm pretty sure there is, because there's what they call insensate moisture loss.
Yeah.
So you lose it through breathing, you lose it through sweating, and you never have to be wet to actually experience that.
Yeah, but I don't know what the ratio is. So maybe there's a little bit of sweat, but if there is, it's to an amount that you would not categorize in your conscious experience as being sweaty or sweating.
Sure.
Yeah, so maybe it is mostly evaporative, but you would still be losing some heat through the collision. And it's a question of ratio, right? Like if you touch, that's why if you touch metal, right?
Sure.
It'll often feel cold to you.
Because it conducts heat away really fast.
It conducts heat really quickly.
Sure.
So it's, the ratio or the rate of collisions are happening with you. And so one of the things that's actually kind of ironic is technically more collisions happen the higher the temperature is for a gas, right?
Sure.
So I wonder if there's actually sort of like an equivalence point where air, if it increases in temperature ever so slightly, it has less ability to take energy away from you ever so slightly, but the increasing collisions from being slightly warmer, I wonder if it ever hits that point where it actually can take more energy away from you while it's warmer, just because of the increased rate of movement of particles. There might be. I don't know. That's one of those things that you could look into and test empirically, but I don't have any sort of gut reaction, right? But anyways. Great show. Really, really good time. Yeah, you're right. Very hot. That's the only real downside of it, and you definitely can't hold that against the artists.
So I just looked this up. This is the Vancouver Coastal Health Services, and they say that temperatures that are 35 degrees or higher, avoid using fans to blow air towards you.
Because it stops working?
Because fans don't cool the air, so don't blow. That's basically hot air on you.
Yeah.
And it'll actually be worse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So I wonder if there's also a speed thing though, because if the air's moving fast enough and it's just totally blasting you, I guess it just wouldn't do
It'd be
anything.
the same heat. You just get more of it, like you were saying. So thankfully I've never been in that situation where I've needed to test it properly.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on to the first comment of the week. This one comes from Captain Hayes 1374. They say, I remember a story game I enjoyed was Orwell, based loosely on Orwell's 1984. I can only play the demo at the time because it wasn't fully complete, but it was already interesting enough to warrant a recommendation. You play as a government surveillance employee and track suspected domestic terrorists online. What you chose to report changes the outcome of the story. Very interesting gameplay. You read text messages and emails, look at photos, and then highlight and report certain content. It serves as both gameplay and exposition. Really cool stuff. So that sounds like a fun game.
Those always sound interesting to me, right? The story-based games where it leans more obviously and heavily into the part where you're actually experiencing story so much more so than gameplay. Those games that you introduced. I think the one my favorite was Her Story.
Her Story is quite good. Yeah. I actually have Orwell in my library at some point from Humble Bundle, so I'll have to check that out at some point. But yeah, Her Story is a great example. I think Papers, Please is maybe one of the original examples of a game like that, where you are sort of... It's an embodied mechanical experience where for Papers, Please, you are checking papers at the border. So what you are doing is you are essentially doing data validation, where you're seeing that their passports aren't expired. And then all of the story is told through the rules that they're setting up for you, right? Where, have some, and you're like working for a totalitarian government. So you, at one point you go, oh, like there's this new rule, people from this country, are not allowed in anymore. And they're doing this thing and it's like illegal, right? They're shutting down like immigration, in a way that is not allowed. And then they go, oh, now there is, I think international human rights people watching us. So don't let people into the country from this country still. But there will be reporters coming through and you have to show the reporters kindness and you have to treat them well. Right. And so here's the name that you have to look out for. And then the gameplay...
That's the opposite of real life. They're shooting reporters with rubber bullets, right? Okay, sorry.
That's true. And then but then also the mechanics, it's meant to be, every time in between days you get money for every person you process. So you're trying to do it as fast as possible. And they don't give you enough money, right? So, there's heat in food for your family, and if you don't get enough, you can't pay for it. But then if you make enough mistakes, you start getting money deducted from your paycheck.
Right.
And so it's meant to mechanically sort of embody the sense of desperation and things spiraling out of your control and being sort of this small cog in a much bigger machine, right? And so that's sort of, I think, the genre of game that it was a very unique experience. It did very well. And I think there's a whole sort of micro genre of games that are kind of like that. Not for Broadcast was one that I played and I really, really liked. And I think a lot of them end up using the lens of a totalitarian government. It sounds like Orwell did that. Not for Broadcast did that. Papers, Please did that. And I don't know if it's just because Papers, Please was the first one, and that's an easy element to transplant, and it's kind of clear the ways in which you can show yourself as a cog of something larger and more sinister pretty easily by having you do sort of relatively benign activities that get contextualized in a way that make them more interesting and exciting, right? That might be why. Or it might literally just be that the first one did it and that was really popular, and the other ones that do it get people picking up on them, right? There's one that I saw recently, actually I haven't played yet, that had a really good trailer, and it seems pretty like dark and weird, and it's called Life Eater, where you are, I believe, like a serial killer. And it's the same kind of thing, but like the mini games that you're doing is you're like tracking their schedule and trying to like find a time where they're not going to be like around other people, right? Or like what like gap in their schedule is like the longest before somebody's going to like know that they're missing or something like that. And so that it looked like weird and sort of creepy and dark in a way that, I think you can often tell if a game is meant to be like for shock value and it's meant to just be sort of like gross and whatever, a game kind of like Postal, right, where it's clearly not taking it seriously. And Life Eater made it seem like it was supposed to be kind of like, I don't know if upsetting is the right word, but maybe almost a little bit upsetting, right, where it was supposed to be kind of like a dark, uncomfortable piece of media. And so that one stuck out to me as something interesting, but then I also wasn't like champing at the bit. I think he's champing at the bit, but I don't remember. I
think both work. Champing is more what the horses do, and chomping is what you do in general with chewing down with your teeth.
Yeah, so I wasn't exactly champing at the bit to play it. It's like one of those things where you go, oh, this might be a really cool experience, but it's not necessarily like, oh, that looks like a ton of fun, right? That's like a nice little light, game I could play whenever. But so I think Orwell, that's an interesting recommendation, and I don't know when exactly, but I'll have to try to find some time to check it out, because I haven't had a ton of time for video games, but that does sound cool.
Yeah. All right, I just looked it up. Champing is the original version. That's how it came. I didn't read far enough to see if it was from horses, but I think chomping has become so common that it's an accepted usage too.
There we go. Okay. Yeah. So our next comment comes from Zooming Ken, and this is, wow, that's super unfortunate he can only knock out on the last hit. I really like his tap combo, but man, does his downside suck. Do you guys know why the devs put that type of knockout on special twos? So do you remember, who is this talking about?
It almost doesn't matter.
Yeah, because it's the principle, because there's a decent number of people who can only knock out on their last hit.
And I think I've got an answer. I mean, I can't really get into their heads, but if I had to make a really educated guess in terms of what the effect was, it works like a equalizer for power creep.
Yeah.
What you don't want to have guys that are not only so powerful that they can knock out the person in front of them really easily. Think how much more unbalancing it would be if you could knock out a bunch of people with one special two.
Multiple fights that lasted the length of a single special two.
Yeah, and so this is the funny thing to me, right? In some ways, the devs did a really great job of finding that balance between power creep and overpowered. And on the other hand, they ended up nerfing a bunch of characters that were good and just made them sort of not so good.
Yeah. I think the thing is in like regular play, if you're talking about beating single player, winning consistently in multiplayer, it's, playing the challenges, right? Getting the Phantom Zone crystals, all that stuff. Most of that gameplay does not really, once you've maxed out your stuff, provide a huge amount of challenge just in terms of winning or losing, right? Mm-hmm. It's really just efficiency and it's how far you can push it, right?
Right.
And so I think, like, to some extent, you don't want to just win every fight super easily, super fast, right? And you want there to be trade-offs in efficiency or, like, questions in terms of, like, challenge, right? That need to be answered by, like, a skill or preparation or whatever, right? So I think in general, you don't want your game to be too easy, right? But I think the special twos that can only knock out on the last hit are a weird balance where I think on some level it kind of makes sense, but on another level it doesn't feel as much fun to play as.
I guess it depends on the mood I'm in. There are times where I like to be engaged. There are some times where I like to just motor through stuff, and it really... and sometimes I want to see something funny.
Yeah.
Like something unusual, something different. But I guess it really depends. There are times where I really do want to motor through the game and steamroll over an opponent.
And I think it is frustrating when you have something like a special 2, which is supposed to be this big damage bomb, and there are cases where it actually slows down the fight and would be like worse to play because you'd have somebody who's pretty low, then you pop a special 2 on them, and then all of a sudden you're just sitting there, watching nothing happen for a little while, and that nothing's like gonna happen because they're just gonna get knocked down to like no health.
And that principle is the exact problem with who's the Suicide Squad Joker, the weird one, the one that's got no shirt on.
It's not the one who laughs. No, who is it?
No, but the one that has the passive where they take over, it drives you mad and takes over. That is the exact problem.
Is it like Arkham Asylum? No, it's not.
No, Suicide Squad. It's a Suicide Squad Joker. I can't remember his name.
He's got like a weird name, yeah.
Yeah, and he's another one. He's the second one that looks like Jared Leto.
Yeah.
But it's the exact problem with that Joker is that kind of balancing where he takes the opponent, and so he has the base stats of the opponent.
The Joker Unhinged.
The Unhinged, right. All right, Suicide Squad Joker Unhinged. That he's got basically the base stats, I think, of the character that he took over, but without their passive, without their gear, and it just slows the fight down. It makes it more painful. It is awful to play with him on a team if you're going to actually use him.
It's true.
No fun. Like I said, there's certain things that they did amazingly well to find the balance so that you can be competitive in cases where you are outgunned, but certain times where it's just awful. And maybe part of the strategy is that they've given you gears, so when you do a huge amount of damage on a special and you cannot knock out anybody more than the person in front of you with that special, then they've given you splash damage gears to try to maximize it, but then it comes at a cost. So maybe there's something to it, right? That you have to plan a little bit even within that character. Never mind your team, never mind the overall composition, but that particular character in any given strategy for how you're going to approach them as an offensive character, you need to be thinking, okay, so do I give up a little bit of this so I can open up a spot so I can do some splash damage if I'm going to be doing this much damage that doesn't knock out anybody else?
Mm-hmm. So there we go. Our next question comes from Hugo Migos 7894, and I guess this is less of a question, more of just a comment. They say, "I wish there was a giveaway sort of thing."
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Did you have thoughts on this?
Yeah. So we've talked about it before, and part of me is thinking about how we've changed, because when we first started this, we did do a couple giveaways, but we were aware of the fact that giveaways really don't drive the audience that you might want or that you think it does when you're originally trying to create an audience.
Yeah, I think giveaways are a really sort of shallow version of getting engagement, right? Where you get people who want something out of you and they're really only there as long as they can get something out of you. And, a giveaway winner isn't like a earned fan, right? A giveaway winner is just somebody who wanted something and then got lucky. And so we did have that one giveaway that I forget what we did. It was like in honor of like 10,000 subscribers or something maybe, where we said, if you know the answer to this question, and it was sort of like a trivia question about us that we knew we had mentioned at some point in one of our videos, and we weren't even sure exactly where. And there was somebody who like listened to all our videos on 2x speed, and who ended up winning it. And that was less of a giveaway, more of a challenge, right? Because it was just the first person to tell us, right? Yeah. Which is one thing. And that person did end up being like a watcher of our channel for like years afterwards, right? And a pretty regular commenter too. So that was, one thing. But also the thing is like, I get why people want giveaways. And I think
it's normal to want stuff.
We've also done different game giveaways at different times. Like when Injustice was on heavy sale on Steam, we gave away some things for that. We ended up donating, or we spent a month of our channel revenue on the bundle for racial justice and inequality after the events with George Floyd and then all the Black Lives Matter protests. And
that first giveaway that you're talking about, we gave away an account to actually, one that we'd worked on.
Yeah, so we've done different stuff over the time, and so like every once in a while we'll talk about a game that I really like, and I'll give away a copy of it, right? Just because I think it's fun and cool and whatever, right? And but
back to the original point that you were making is that it really doesn't drive the audience in a way that matters, and we knew that. We did it anyways because it seemed like it would be a fun thing to do.
Yeah, and it was fun.
And I think as I've gotten older, as this channel's gotten older, I feel like I don't even mind the shallow engagement, right? It's not so much the engagement that's not necessarily what we're aiming for. It's just that it doesn't feel like a fun thing to do anymore.
Yeah.
I guess the excitement, back in the day when I had a lot more time and I was developing the Injustice account, developing the Mortal Kombat X account, developing the WWE Immortals account. That's time, man. And it's almost ironic that since we're playing fewer games now, that the amount of time overall that I have to spend to work on what we're doing.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I guess potentially, because listen, it's not just the giveaways. I think it's strongly implied that it's a giveaway of an account. That's what people usually ask for, right? That the time it would take to develop an account is just not something that I can spare anymore.
No. Yeah. And so it's one of those things where you have to chase what's fun. And I think I would much rather, I don't really want anybody putting any time and energy into us because they think they're going to get something out of us, except for what it is that we're already giving you, right? Yeah. I think if you want to get something different out of us than what's already here, then I don't want anybody to, not waste it. But I think that's the other thing about a giveaway is that it is mostly kind of a waste, right?
Right.
Is that there's a lot of people putting in some amount of time and energy for one person getting something. And the math as a sort of creator is that you want to get more out of it than you put in.
Yeah.
In one sense or another. And I just don't think that that's true. And so like one of the things when we talk about like how we just would I talk about a game and I give it away. I've had people comment and they said, oh, that game sounds cool. I might check it out sometime, but I'll save it I'll let somebody who really needs it to take it. Right.
Yeah.
And so we've had times where and every once in a while if it's something like that, I think there was one time where I replied and I was like, we have like an extra copy that nobody has taken. Right. And I ended up giving it to that person. So it's kind of cool where I like when I say, here's a game I like and I want people to try it and experience it. And so if you want it but don't have it, then here you go, right? And I get to give something that to me is way more cool. And what you'll find is that a lot of if you have the like giveaway in your title or description, more people will watch that video, but they'll watch it because they want to get something from you. And so when we've done those things, we used to say like giveaway, right? And in recent years when we've done those things, I have not mentioned it at all.
Not in the title.
Not in the title, right? So you have to watch the video, you have to already be there, and then you happen to get to the part of the video or say, hey, if you want something for free, shoot us an email, right? At this email, and then in the description, I'll let you know when there's no more to give out, right?
Right.
And that was much cooler because it was people who already liked our stuff. And instead of rewarding somebody who is looking up the term Injustice giveaway or who sees it and only clicks on the video because they want to see that, it was somebody who already likes us, who's already there. And then I get the opportunity to give somebody who likes our stuff and who's engaging actively, you know, the chance to like play a game without needing to invest in it. Like to me, that's like what I want to do. That feels rewarding to me, as opposed to just people who don't actually really care.
All right, so what you said made me sort of realize what I was thinking and crystallize some of the thoughts.
Yeah,
because
that's good.
The biggest change for me is time, and the difference in time is that commitment for doing stuff. I'd rather do it for stuff that's already happening. I'm not really interested in driving more views. I'm not really interested in making a bigger audience. What I need is more time. And if I've got time, I'm not spending it on something that won't drive our channel the way that we care about.
Yeah.
I would rather spend it making other videos.
Yeah.
And before, at one point, this is a funny conversation to have now. Do you remember when we talked about how we were afraid at some point we would run out of ideas?
Yeah.
I have tons of ideas. I have lots of things that if I could make them instantly, I would. I have no shortage of ideas. What I have shortage of is time. Mm-hmm. And it's almost the opposite of 10 years ago.
So there we go.
Started doing this.
So I think that's a good place to end it off at. And I think the last thing I'll say is that I imagine there will, for this commenter, there will probably be at least one giveaway at some point in the future, right? But not in the way that they want. So I imagine that there's going to be a point where I go, oh, there's a game I like, there's a thing I want, you know. I'm thinking about it now. I don't think I would do something like that. But, you know, like, oh, if you're going to be in a city that Bug Hunter is going to be in, I'll buy you a ticket to a Bug Hunter show or something, right? Like, that's the kind of thing where I think that would be cool or something that I'd want to do. But it's not like the kind of, like, we're going to make an account for you stuff.
What I think actually is that at some point, maybe when we're tired of Injustice, I might give away
one of the OG accounts.
But here's the problem. By the time I'm tired of Injustice, there's not going to be an audience for this. The number of people who will actually want an account, I think, will be vanishingly small, and it will have no value to anybody.
Interesting. Okay, so maybe look out for that. There we go.
So
who knows when?
I'll tell you when. That's when we witness the slow heat death of this channel.
Yeah. There we go. To finish up, we'd like to give a huge thank you to the people who are delaying the heat death of this channel. That is our lovely patrons on Patreon. If you have never had a Patreon where people have given you money because they liked your content, you will not know how cool it feels to have people support your stuff for essentially nothing in return. But it is an awesome feeling, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it's like a big part of the reason why we are putting our energy into this specific thing instead of just, you know, like, I don't know, some other way of like hanging out or whatever. Like that's a huge motivator that makes what we do still feel cool and still feel like it matters to people.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. And so that's a huge thank you to Michael Devries, Irvin, Ruiz, Hoshi 127, Nora Klimek, and Miguel supporting us on the credited level. And, you know, another thing that feels nice is just the support we get in general, right? The most visible thing that feels like people to us is obviously when people like comment, right? And that's not to say, oh, you should like comment, you know, like and subscribe. But that's the thing that's the easiest thing for me to feel like an actual like person on the other end of the screen. You know, the numbers and the views are cool too, because I know that they're people, but it's harder for me to convert them in my head. But anyways, huge thank you to all you who support us, however you do. And we'll see you next time.
Komoda.